Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. It gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. Creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. They'll even distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. So welcome back to another episode of It Is What It Is podcast. I am your host, Coach Cailah. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. I have an exciting panel, exciting episode dealing with church and fitness, really kind of dealing with the phobias and I would say the controversy that surrounds why we have not embraced fitness as something that is spiritual in the realm of the Christian faith. As always, if you want to keep seeing amazing content, please subscribe to the link below because those Koji reports are expensive and I live in Chicago and everything in Chicago is expensive. So I have an amazing guest. I'll let them introduce themselves. I'll start with Coach Cailah. If you could introduce yourself.
Hey guys, my name is Coach Cailah. I'm an online personal trainer and nutrition coach. Prior to COVID, I traveled the country speaking on health, wellness, and fitness. During COVID, I am here at my house providing the same health, wellness, and fitness services. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Dr. Jonathan Shepherd, if you can introduce yourself.
Yes, sir. Jonathan Shepherd here, board certified child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist, chief medical director of Hope Health Systems, which is a large mental health organization in the state of Maryland, treating the third largest number of children with mental health disorders in the state. And I'm here.
Good. My brother, the one, the only, Joliet's finest, who has also promised to put me on the next album, Maurice Fears Sr. How you doing, sir?
Bless you, brother. Good to be here tonight. God bless all you all. Elder Maurice Fears, Redeemed Church, also operations director for the YMCA Metropolitan Chicago. One of our branches is on the west side of Chicago and Humboldt Park as well, the McCormick Y, and Pilsen neighborhood, the Router Family YMCA.
Awesome. And none other than the one, the only, the truest of the true, straight south side of Chicago, pastor, Reverend Dr. Archbishop, and sometimes okay basketball player, Naamon Williams. If you could just introduce yourself.
My name is Pastor Naamon Williams. I have no idea why I'm on a fitness panel. None. But the only thing I can think of is that I beat Cody in basketball in front of a whole bunch of people. So I guess he respects me a little.
I do respect you. However, let me make a correction. You did not beat me. You beat Freedom Temple. I was not playing. You beat Chris Taylor and them guys. And when I started coaching, that's what we won. So I just want to make that correction. When I step on the court, it all goes down. We started winning. So I want to jump it off. Look, the reason why, I wanted to have this is because, grew up in a very spiritually focused faith, right? As a believer, as a Christian, and then I think on top of that, as a fundamentalist, as a Pentecostal, we focus so much on piety, godliness, internal transformation, what have you. But it was like it was absent from physical exercise to the point that physical exercise was actually deemed as something almost improper or inappropriate. Not so much in my generation, but definitely in my mother's generation and even before that, right? Like, if you kind of listen to their stories, they weren't allowed to go to gym class. Some of them weren't allowed to participate and really follow their athletic dreams because it was considered something taboo, not necessarily sinful, but a distraction, I think is what I'm trying to get at, right? So I think we have to address it from that. So I want to start with Coach Cailah because she has, to me, a very unique perspective as not only being a certified personal trainer, but also having that same upbringing and just some of her struggle. And then I want to throw it to Dr. Shepherd after Coach Cailah is done. Dr. Shepherd, what is the mental toll? And that'd be the question for you, that when the pulpit does not address the holistic human experience, right? What type of mental toll does that take on an individual that they feel like I can't exercise because somehow it's ungodly? So Coach Cailah, I'll start with you. You're muted. You're muted.
I sure was talking. I just started praying real quick. All right. So again, guys, my name is Coach Cailah. Again, I'm a online fitness nutritionist and all that good stuff. So my background and kind of, I guess the reason I'm on here is because I'm a PK. Grown in the church. My father is a bishop out of Cincinnati, Ohio. So mothers, it's always been first daughter, first family, first this, first that. You know, we built churches from the ground up. I remember, putting drywall up, putting fiberglass up, like from the very beginning, from church, from Monday through Sunday, thrice on Wednesdays, twice on Fridays. Like, that's my background, and my mother was always athletic, so she was a dancer, and in the church, my parents were raised Baptist and Apostolic. And so my mother, when she came to Cincinnati, we were under Bishop Alfred Nichols in Cincinnati, Ohio. And so back in the day, my mom just had the Spirit of the Lord on her that told her to dance. And being in that style of church, she was not allowed to dance. First of all, being a woman. Second of all, dancing on the pulpit, like in the pulpit. What? That's craziness. So my mom talked to Bishop Nichols, and, he showed her in the Bible, hey, David danced before the Lord and his clothes fell off. So I think you're okay. So he allowed her to dance, and they ended up starting the first liturgical dance company in the Midwestern region. And so from that, years ago, it spun off, actually being able to dance and being physically active, be covered, but be physically active on the pulpit and in church. And so, decades later, here I come, and I'm a little wild child. I want to go play and wrestle and tussle and be like the boys. And I remember playing basketball, my dad preaching on Sundays, and he would never come to my basketball games because they were on Sundays. It was the Lord's day. You weren't supposed to do anything but go to church, do church stuff, and go home. And I remember him kind of feeling torn because we would win, mom would be there, and he wouldn't be a part. So he ended up starting kind of separating himself from that old school thought and opinion of like, this is okay. Things are changing, and my thought process needs to change along with that. So I think there's a lot of church hurt, church misconception, and church behind the times in terms of actually focusing on being healthy and what's really important in terms of our spiritual and our physical health in the Lord.
Awesome. Dr. Shepherd, as far as dealing with that, church hurt from a psychological standpoint, if somebody comes to you and explains this, right, you are blessed to be in the company of great leaders in the body of faith, and sometimes there's ambiguity, there's gray area, right? What or how should you counsel them? Like, what would you say if somebody says I'm not allowed, or growing up my pastor told me I cannot do this because somehow that is not Christ-like? What would you say from a psychological standpoint?
Well, what I'm going to do, Cody, first I'm going to go back to the question you asked me from the very beginning, because sure. I think that is the question that I want to tackle now and then lead into the second one. Because the coach, she just gave the great example of the mental toll of what happens when we don't allow people to exercise their gifts within the church or the church community. People are playing games, and why is it that their parents can't go to the game? And now here you have a daughter who wants her father to be there at the game to share with her dad the victories, share with her dad that time. We've got to stop doing this. The mental toll is heavy. There are so many different things that I look back now, and thankfully I have parents who, they went against the grain. They were never the norm, and so that's how I just grew up. Even though there may be things that came across the pulpit, if it was something that just was opinion, and that's one thing you have to understand. You have to know what's opinion versus what is true to be formed in doctrine. All right. I just said something there because a lot of folks say that doctrine and a lot of stuff is really truly opinion. And so that was one of the things. And I understood, again, I'm not knocking the opinions, but I understood why some people thought that way as for certain things of being distractions. There are certain distractions, so exercise or basketball and things like that. For some of them, it was a distraction. But for many of them, we need to get out there and get that physical fitness. So that mental toll of not being able to participate with that in the family was huge. And it didn't just come down to basketball games. It was other areas where I saw where fathers were not participating, pastors, leaders, they miss how their children were growing up in various different things because they did not allow themselves to go to those events. And now many of them are regretting it. I see it, and the children are living it out. So what do I say? What are the words I say to pastors? And I do talk to pastors. I do talk to leaders about these various topics. I say to them, you need to be true to yourself. You need to be true to your family. If your child is interested in something like exercise, playing games, basketball, football, I encourage you to push them forward and be involved. We've got to have more parents and more leaders who need to be involved in their families.
Awesome. Love it. Maurice, you have the unique position to not only be a preacher of the gospel, but you also serve as a director within the YMCA, which is an institution basically dedicated toward fitness. Has that created any gray areas for you, or have you ever had pushback from any side on yay, nays? I remember when I was earlier in my teens, you guys would have the Family Enrichment Conference. I think you guys were one of the first churches that would have like a night of fitness, right? And I think we kind of bit off that as far as the youth retreat. So what has that experience been like for you?
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here with everybody. I think, for me, and again, it's me personally, I've never had an issue separating it because work was work. And I always had the privilege of being able to, separate the expectation that may have came along with that by being in the church, especially in the generation that I came in. So I came into a space where that battle had been fought basically by young people in the church. I'll kind of step back a little bit and kind of jump on a question that was asked a time in. My father, coming up, he was a high school basketball, playground legend in the Clare Courts coming up on the west side of Chicago. Very gifted basketball player. And he was, and at that time too, with the racial divide, he was one of a few African-American men on the Kennedy High School basketball team in the city of Cicero, which was a big thing. Mm-hmm. Very excellent basketball player. My grandmother, his mother, and his father, Deacon Fears. My grandmother was a state Sunday school field representative for Northern Illinois. She was a staunch missionary. She didn't come to one basketball game. Wow. But Deacon Fears, on the Deacon's board, he came to them all because they was on Friday nights, which was a church night. My grandmother came to one basketball game, the last one of his senior year. She came with a full suit, with the fur collar, a hat on, the whole thing. And I think it tells the story of the evolution, right? Because saints now, they took some things to heart, come out from among them to be separate. And, and that necessarily, as we've progressed through the years, some things were not as, heavy as they were stressing it to be. But I'm thankful they treated it that way because I can imagine where we would be now. So just imagine back in the 20s and 30s, if they say, oh, wear your mini skirt to church. Just think of the evolution with setting some form of moral boundary somewhat of what sanctification is. Now we found out through living and as we go forward, education and opportunity that, hey, some things were okay. So I think in that estimation, the separation sometimes, and even now with our generation, my son, he's 30, he just turned 13. He tells me some stuff I'm doing now is old. It's old school. And I'm looking at him like I was a pioneer of breaking the trend, So as we go forward, I think that kind of evolution of change, especially in the church, is going to keep revamping itself. Long story short, my father had basketball scholarships, several universities in the United States, in Virgin Islands, across the country. He didn't take them, not because of that, but because he always said because his head went on straight. But now he knows why he wasn't supposed to take them because of what he's doing now. So I think it's always a good opportunity to understand that there's a progression in this thing, and some stuff is definitely way off base and is not that serious, but I think it kind of helped us be able to kind of be where we are today.
I love it. Pastor Naamon, you have the unique perspective. As a pastor, you have, as political commentaries would suggest, you have the bully pulpit, right? I, growing up in the first family as well, I've had some very interesting conversations, listening to other pastors and kind of their feeling toward fitness and other things that was, let's say, shaking my head, right? Things that I totally disagreed with, without, putting anybody on blast, but just to me, unsubstantiated claims, right? Have you ever, and especially when you're talking about dealing with the inner city youth, you're dealing with Black and brown communities, obviously we know the health disparities that are associated in these communities. Has that been a focus? Has it been like, I need to teach on the importance of wellness? Like I can think of, King Eglon, right? Like in the Old Testament, right? Like has it been something like the Lord has instructed you to do? And then has there been pushback maybe from an older demographic of the church, not necessarily yours, locals, but as far as voices that influence?
First of all, it's an honor to be here, and thank you for the question, and thank you for having me, Cody. Pushback. Maurice would tell you how I would probably look at pushback is, it's whatever to me. I will say, as far as as everything that you guys have talked about, my father was a playground legend as well, and I had a pretty good athletic career. But it really took off in Chicago. They have something called JRW, Jackie Robinson West Baseball. And I had the opportunity to play baseball, but the parade was on a Sunday. My mom didn't want me to go because the parade was on a Sunday and I was a church musician. I think I was just playing drums at the time. But my father, because of his athletic background, he let me go. And what he did is because the route of the parade was passing my church, he had the whole church to meet me where I would be. So he only had 20 minutes of service, and the whole church met me just for a parade. That moment right there really changed my life, and it let me know that, not only that my pastor cared about me, but my dad cares about me in another way. And from that, I believe that it has blessed me as far as my ideology and how I look at pastoring, how I look at leadership. I believe that we as leadership empower instead of try to control or manipulate someone's growth. And I feel just because of that moment that I had, just seeing my whole church saying, we're glad for you, Junebug. I didn't even play that day, but just to see them out there, it let me know that wellness and the church actually can get along. It does not have to be something separate. And I'll say this to you, and Maurice knows this. I've preached with the analogies of basketball rims inside of my pulpit. I've had a lot of pushback from other preachers who saying, how could I have a basketball rim, in my church? But people don't know that my church has grown through my athletic career. My Facebook, most of my Facebook friends are not church people. Most of my Facebook friends are from my athletic career. So I will never just turn away from that.
Awesome. Coach Cailah, this one's for you. So there, I think, is a double standard, right? And I think that's safe to say, particularly when it comes to the issue of gender. I've heard from voices, from select voices, some of the pushback for women in fitness is because they deem it too sensual, right? Like, I posted a video of my wife squatting. Let's just say I got a lot of good feedback from the fellas. It was like, man, you lucked up. I was like, I know, but it wasn't all cool from some other side, right? And to the point that that's where the fuel or some of the negativity is vibing off of, right? And I think that's totally unfair. I think exercise is exercise, right? I mean, do you feel like, and we've talked, Coach Cailah, you talked about like even when judging, you know, you talk about the bikini contest, you talk about there's a difference between judging the men versus the women, right? Is that playing too also now in the realm of fitness as it comes to people of faith that there's things or women shouldn't do this because is that a real issue?
Absolutely. I think across the board, you're always going to have sexism. It's going to be there. It's still 2020, but it's going to be there. And when you look at it from a more historical standpoint, it was always the men. You know, Christianity comes from a very patriarchal society where it's the men. The women are to be quiet. They are to be in the back. They are to be unseen, unheard. You know, and so now when you put women in the same category as doing the same thing men are doing, now there's going to be a battle, and there's always going to be, okay, well, she shouldn't do that because she's tempting other men to do X, Y, and Z. You know, so you had your shirt off doing a bench press. Cool. Sure, that's great fitness. Awesome job. You know, we mess with each other on your technique and your form, right? Now, if your wife had a sports bra on, did the same thing, why is there a difference? Right? She's covering up her holy parts. Amen. But why is there a difference? You know, and I think more importantly, when we look at how we operate inside of the church and we look at wellness outside of just the skin, outside of that, let's talk about how after church events, why do we always eat fried chicken? Why do the women that are usually the ones that are cooking always have to, you know, cook the same thing or put ourselves and our church members in a position of being unhealthy? Like, why is that the standard? You know, so when we look at men versus women, I think it's across the board. Yes, we can look at the fitness aspect of women just naturally being, you know, sexualized beings. That's humanity. That just is what it is. But I think more importantly, like, how can we change the culture of our church where the women can speak up and speak out, where the men can support those opinions? You might have that one sister girl that says, hey, let's do cucumber sandwiches after our church meeting instead of fried chicken. And then everyone else jumps in and says, no, just go ahead and make your mac and cheese, Sister Gwendolyn, and we'll stay with that. You know, so I don't think so much in terms of health and wellness. There's a battle between men and women, but I think that the battle is between our comfort and where we should be. You know, like the church, like I truly believe, like the church should be the forefront in protecting our health, the health of our communities, right? Whether that's spiritual health, whether that's physical health, whether that's mental, whether that's emotional, whether that's social, we hit everything else. But why do we always just jump over physical? It should all be even. The Bible talks about being even, being balanced in the Lord. So I think we've got to change the focus into how can we balance out health, nutrition, and wellness with spirituality.
No, well said. I like that. And I totally glad you went there because I want to go there too. Let's talk about that dealing with balancing it all, right? And I think you mentioned something, Coach Cailah. You talked about you know, the culture that is created when we don't, right? Toxic masculinity, right? It's a real thing, right? Dr. Shepherd, you know, psychologically, have we created a very toxic environment, a male toxic environment in the church? And if so, because I love giving you 2-part questions, I know you're going to, you know, hit out the park. And, you know, when you invite me on your show, I'll return the favor. How do we change the norm from a psychological standpoint of toxic masculinity?
How do you change the norm? First of all, people don't like change, so let's just be honest with that. So it's gonna take the mind, because anytime that you get ready to change something, it's a mindset, you know. And I think everybody on here would agree with me. You know, if you're gonna lose weight, you just don't get up and start losing weight. You got to first see it, you know, being done, and you got to know that it's a mindset. And so where we are, it's going to take people of a flexible mindset, if I could, a flexibility to be able to move forward the agenda of what you're talking about, Cody. You're talking about centuries you're talking about centuries. So you just can't move this stuff easily. And you're talking about not just within the church, you're talking about within society as a whole, and how they degrade women. We're just now, seeing, and really in the last 4 years since Hillary Clinton lost the election, you really have seen just a big turn in how society is pushing up the woman. And so, it's amazing. So how do you deal with that? Psychologically, it's going to take people to, first of all, want to change their mindset. Again, I'm in the Kojic way. That's all I have known. And in the Kojic way, they are not about to ordain a woman.
What's up?
Right. They just not gonna do it. But let me tell you.
These are the words expressed solely by Dr. Shepard. I just got to put that disclaimer out there.
I don't care. I know what I'm talking about, y'all. I'm
with you.
Right. He can't believe whatever.
Say
right,
on,
he be on something sometimes. I just be like, okay, whatever. But let me tell you, I am so impressed by the women who do not allow that to stop them from being who God called them to be. You cannot stop somebody from being what they're called to do and called to be. You can't do it. And because of that, we have to somewhere get in line and find hopefully a happy place, because that is just true gospel right there. So again, some of the stuff that we do, I don't, and this is me personally, and people can go back. I don't necessarily have a problem with a woman who is a preacher. There's women who've declared, throughout the Bible. But before I digress too much, because this show might come up and they might try to hold it against me if I decide to run for public office. He said that. But psychologically, Cody, it takes somebody wanting to have an open mindset, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that. I will say this, and I'm done. The pandemic has opened up many people. And we realize that with this pandemic, that time is not on our side. And so some of the stuff that we used to fight over, it doesn't matter no more.
I like it. Pastor Naamon, Dr. Jonathan Shepard talked about having an open mindset toward this, and especially in relation not to just calling, but to fitness. As a pastor, how do you create that open mindset toward fitness? Do you have a specific series you do on it? How do you mount it from basically the highest point of leadership within the local body, right? How do you go about that?
To be totally honest with you, I'm a little bit biased, and I probably should be saying this as a pastor. I have a big youth department in my church. So I've kind of concentrated on a generation. It's because the generation that is coming, they do not hold back what they feel. They say what they want to say, however they want to say it. So I've kind of paid attention to them when it came down to actually physical wellness. But the great thing about our ministry, my head missionary is a part of Garza, and she lost over 100 pounds. So she is tremendously active, and have had a lot of our members from our church to join it. And it has been a blessing, more or less, in the ministry. As far as a preaching series, I have to go with Dr. Shepard. It's all a mindset. So whatever it is, if I'm talking about lay aside every weight in Hebrews, then I will talk about the spiritual side, but there is a weight that we need to lay aside naturally as well. So in everything, I believe that there's a way to get the job done. And going forward, I just believe the leaders have to be more comfortable having a board or people around them that don't necessarily agree with them, so we can look at things from a different angle and be able to broaden our horizons as leaders. Being Kojic, I only seen things one way, but because I'm a musician by trade, I got a chance to experience every denomination there is. And I've learned a lot from a lot of other people and a lot of other nationalities that I was able, that helped cultivate me. Even I'm Kojic to the bone, but it has cultivated me as a leader. So, I mean, that's my outtake on it.
Awesome. Elder Maurice. So we talked about cultivating and speaking toward this generation that is here and this upcoming generation, whether it's millennials or it's Generation Y, right? As someone who really keeps themselves to the ground and connects, and then somebody who embarked on their own personal fitness journey. You know, I've kept in contact and seen the things you've posted. How has that transition been? Like for you and as a preacher, like, you know, it's not just talking this talk, but it's also going, you post pictures of you riding your bike. Talk about that process.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get through the little shallow part first. I was one that I've always been active my entire life. Basketball, football, track, around it, whatever. I was always thinking. And I was one, and I say this, I've never felt bad with my weight. I've never had issue. And about a year and a half ago, it just happened one particular evening. I began to have feel a certain type of way. Just wasn't feeling all together. And it was right up at my 40th birthday. So my birthday passed and I didn't feel good. I was just feeling, couldn't even categorize it. So I went in, my wife and I, and then had some tests done, and I found out that I was type 2 diabetic. So I went in that Friday. My doctor called me on Sunday morning at 7:30 in the morning. Asked me, was I sitting down? So I was like, okay, here we go. So she said, asked me had I been having faint spells, had I been blacking out? I was like, no. She said, well, your A1C was 11.3. And I had never had that test done before. So, and I always knew about the rigors of diabetes and what it could do and all of that. But in that moment, it was all placed in front of me. And she began to go down a litany of things that could happen. By the time I'm 50, by the time I'm 60, and when she got to 70, she was saying limbs and blindness and different things like that. And let me say this is the shallow part. I've never been motivated to lose weight because I felt okay. And really the only thing that motivated me to lose weight was a shirt I couldn't fit at Macy's. I'm just going to tell you what it is. It wasn't that they didn't have it in my size. If they had a 2X, I was cool. But some shirts they only had it a large, and I couldn't, that would be my motivation. But at that point, my motivation was facing me not being fulfilling my destiny. That's what motivated me. My son and my wife, the ministry that God has laid before me, right? So now he's giving me an opportunity to do something about it. And I think a lot of the times we miss God, letting us know about things to take advantage of that opportunity. So I went cold turkey. She was like, let's make a plan. I said, no, I'm cutting it sugar out. I'm cutting out I went cold turkey. And I'm gonna tell you, without the Lord and without my wife, changing our structure in our household. And it took about the first 3 months, I was an angry bear. And our doctor said I was going through sugar withdrawal, what she was saying. And but I got on the path. At my highest, I was 304 pounds. I never would have thought it. My doctor said, you don't even look it. And my lowest, I was 228. So I've lost nearly 80 pounds, but I gained back about 12. I went down 10 suit sizes, 6 waists in the waist. I'm in a large, large, extra large. And it's have I changed personally? I would say I haven't. My wife would say I walk a little taller, for sure. But I think we got to take opportunity. And I want to just jump on something we talked about the last one. I'll be done. Sure. I think a lot of the times, and we mentioned this, Coach Cailah mentioned it, we have to look at this as a holistic approach to living right? Those that are riotous living, drinking, and all the other sins that we lift up, right? We have to balance it out. And as the church, we have to give information and access. And we give information about Christ. and access to living right? So we need to give information about doing well for ourselves. Our church have health fairs. My wife puts on a prayer walk run. We do a 3K walk run at our church. We've had health fairs over the years. And we have to give the people access. We got to preach Jesus and give them access to eternal life. And we got to give them access to being, hey, take care of yourself. Push back the plate. And I'm in my segment with this. Bishop Blake, years ago, he sat down to eat at Bishop Marshall's church after he had preached. And they laid it out like Coach Cailah said. They had the chicken, the fried chicken, the greens, everything. And they filled his plate up. And they said he ate a little bit. He said, Bishop, you're not finished, you're not going to eat. He said, you know what? I live the fasting life. He said, when I can't control my portions on my plate, I don't eat everything on my plate. I live the fasted life. And that always stuck with me. And now I really understand after getting some discipline that you can do it.
I love it. And I love the personal story that you shared. Thank you for your transparency and sharing that. And shout out to Bishop Blake, man. Shout out taking the I don't think any other presiding bishop would have retired. Shout out
real
to
quick.
Bishop. Yeah.
My A1C is a 5.6.
Hey, so glory. That was a praise. I was only on medication.
I was only on medication for probably 2.5 months.
Yeah.
It pulled me off because it was going so good, but glory to God for that.
Awesome. If I had music, I would have gave it to you right then and there, man. That was your shout. I would have gave it to you, but I can't play, so I didn't learn. I can do other things though. But anyway, so Coach Cailah, so can we go too far? I don't think I've changed, right? I think I've been pretty consistent. Anybody that knows me knows I've pretty much been consistent. I think I've gotten better, but I've been consistent. But sometimes, the video of me, bench pressing shirtless, that don't always, I thought it was cool. I like it, but that don't always fly. Wife's cool with it. So, but it doesn't fly in all circles. But I don't see, I just see it exercise. I don't see it like, just me, whatever. I think, I thought 315 was pretty cool. And it was good form. I'm going to call you out. That was good form. I don't care what y'all say. So, can we, though? Is there, we talk about body imagery, just as there is toxic masculinity, there also might be, toxic femininity, right? There might be false claims on what or certain developments within a woman's physique, right? And I feel like it is appropriate, as somebody in fitness, as a trainer yourself and as a woman, like, is there pressure to resemble a certain feature or size? Is that like, if you don't hit this apex, somehow it counts against you? What is that conversation like?
Honestly, that is cultural. Right. So different cultures like different things. If you look at African Americans, typically we like the hourglass for the most part. Some may prefer different parts more than others, but we like the hourglass. Whereas in other cultures, they may prefer a flat butt. Other cultures may prefer, larger hips or whatever else. So it is definitely cultural. And I think a lot of times as Christians, we forget that we have a culture that is in our DNA. We are from different places around Africa, but we forget that, hey, we have parts of our soul, parts of our spirit, like the spirit is connected through time, through space, to God, to others. And we forget that. So, yes, there are some people that may identify, that may prefer certain things, but we have to understand, like, your body is a blessing of the Lord. Right. So this is what my mom always taught me, what her mom taught her. She said, when God gives you a gift, taking care of that gift shows him your respect of him and your appreciation. So if God gave us our bodies and we are not cleaning our bodies, what does that show? Right. So everybody here, we have houses or apartments or whatever it may be. God blessed us with those things. And if we live in trash and in filth and in whatever, that's going to get taken away, particularly if it was a blessing of God, because my mom always said that's like a slap in God's face. So what are we doing with our bodies? God granted us our bodies. It's only one part of it. God granted us our body. So if we are not taking care of our temple, in the position where we can actually go and work for him, what are we really doing? So again, this part is this is not a sexist thing. This is more of a, hey, like culturally, you may like A, so someone else may like B. Some guys prefer the Johnny Bravo kind of look with the big up top. I like calves. That's just me. So people prefer different things. But I think again, more importantly, like, we have to look at what is our goal, what is our purpose. Whatsoever you do it for the glory of the Lord. Are we doing it for a reason that is for sexuality? Am I trying to get this? Am I trying to get that? Or am I doing it to actually represent? Like, I think I'm non-denominational. Okay. So I think that Christians have a problem doing missions to our own people because we don't look good. How can someone come up to someone else's house with groceries or with this or with that? They're out of breath. Their skin is detestable because they don't take care of their body. Their breath stinks. They're out of shape or this and that. So let's be real. A lot of times in church, we are not real. So how can we bring the glory of God to somebody else when we look terrible? We're terrible. Fat, we're out of shape. We've got everything jiggling that's not supposed to be jiggling. And we want to tell somebody, hey, let's talk about God. Jesus is amazing. Be like, is he really? Because I don't see it in you. People are going to see our physical selves first, right, not the spiritual. They may feel something. They might not be able to identify with their discernment what that something is. But I need God to be shown through my body. It took me such a long time as a young kid to realize what my gift was. I was always taught some are preachers, some are teachers, some are this, some are that. And I'm just like, I do push-ups pretty daggone well. I can do me some sit-ups. I can speak, I can do this, but that wasn't in the Bible. And it took me to mature in the Lord to realize that, hey, my ability to actually push people to do better in their own physical selves is something that the kingdom needs. Some preachers wheeze and they yell and they do all that. Some of them don't do it out of just fashion, even though that's another story. Some of them do it because they can't really breathe. So how can we be vessels of God and our vessel looks like trash? Who wants that?
Dr. Shepard, who wants that? You're a man, Dr. Shepard.
I'm sorry. I just keep it real honest.
I don't want it.
Go ahead, Doc. Pray for me. Right, go ahead, Doc. You got it.
We take that trash out. No, I mean, but she's right though. You're absolutely right, Coach. When I look at people, when I want to model myself after someone, I always look for someone who looks better than me or who's doing better than me. And that same approach should be when it comes to walking upright as a Christian believer, professionally, whatever you might do. Even if, when you're mentoring, you should find somebody who is looking and doing better than you. That should be the thing that you do. That's the ideal mentor for you. And so, yes, that it is. It is very troubling when I watch sermons and I look at our leaders and I'm thinking to my God, please don't let them pass out while I am up in here, because I don't feel like do a CPR. It is true. And it's not because they just, God takes them right then and there. It's just because they have not been living right or treating their body right. And so there is a mixed message. It's a mixed message when we, talk about the God of all creation, but yet all we see is men who are operating within the church. We have to be careful of the messages. I will never forget this. When someone told me, and I'm very careful now, even more careful now when I speak, but we have to be careful of the subliminal messages that we are sending out. The body language, the things that we're sharing with people. So if you say that God loves our people, he created us equally, and yet we don't see our youth, or yet we don't see women, or yet all we see is older Black men, or whatever denomination if it's a Caucasian church or whatever, and if all you see is one sex, something's wrong there, and we have to be careful of the message that we are sending out. Let me just say this too. Congratulations to Maurice. That was an awesome testimony. I've known him for a long time, and when I saw him, I was like, man, I mean, it was joy to see. I had no clue, of the things that he was going through, but I'll never forget. Maurice invited me. It hit me when I saw you. He invited me to come down to YMCA before I moved to Baltimore, and this has got to be. And you know what, Maurice? I still have that shirt that you gave me. I can still fit it. You know why? Because I've been keeping my body. That's the point. I keep up. I haven't always. And let me say this: Thanksgiving is coming. This is not the time just to say throw out the baby with the bathwater. Let's practice some type of restraint even on Thanksgiving Day.
I love it. And wear your mask too. I don't know what's going on. I'm at the gym. I'm like, dude, if you don't put your mask on, the dude almost made me sad. Anyway, so Maurice, we're talking about sending the wrong message. And I know we're coming to a close here. I think this pandemic has showed us all that what we say and what we do and what we don't do has a voice to it, right? And we have to really be careful, not for necessarily the sake of being PC, but for the sake of just being right? Like we have to really make sure that we're doing things intentfully, right? And intentionally, and that the aim is in line with the strategy. So as someone who has a lot of influence over the youth, as someone who hand is on, I would say, the pulse of the youth of the church, right? And as a preacher yourself, what steps do you take to make sure that you're sending forth the proper message?
Yeah, great question. I think it goes back to one of my, it's a recent song, but I'm sure there's other variations throughout the years, but Confronting has a song on an album called The Only Jesus. And it just talks about that your life is going to be the only Jesus that some people may see. And I really feel like now more than ever, I think leading in the way that God does is most important. And I say that, and what I mean by that is this, that we don't know, the Bible tells us that we don't know the mind of God. And what we know of God is what he has left us in the scripture, right? And I was doing some reading, and God really wants us to lead in love and acceptance about people's character, and not necessarily they fit a profile of how they look to meet a job or get something done. When King David was anointed king, the Bible says that his oldest brother came first, and that Samuel, this is what Samuel said within himself. So he said to himself, this must be the one. Why did Samuel say that? Because Samuel's only model for what a king should be was what God anointed in Saul. Saul was tall, stature above everybody. He looked like a king as far as what was the spoils around in the land. This is somebody that looked like a king. So, and God anointed Saul. So Samuel's only reference for that was Saul's stature, how he carried himself, his lineage in war and battle. But God spoke to Samuel after Samuel spoke within himself and said, no, I don't look on the outward appearance, but I look at the heart. And I think a lot of the times that Dr. Shepherd, he mentioned it, I think it's our effort in being deliberate and having some type of restraint and having discipline. And I think people a lot of times, I won't be able to look at somebody that may be well overweight and say, you know what, you're dishonoring God because of that. But if you're putting forth effort, there's a struggle, and it's the balance of discipline in so many areas of our life. We got to be disciplined in not drinking alcohol, not disciplined in being whoremongers, not disciplined in being backbiters, but also we need to be disciplined in how we take care of ourselves. And it is the moving around our faith to believe him to heal us. We can actually transfer faith to us to be deliberate and doing better with our bodies. So it's about asking God for that discipline. And that's what I had to ask him for, a higher level of discipline, and put that in reference to me taking care of my health, which I can exercise in so many other areas. I could believe God to heal you of cancer. I believe God to give me this job that I apply for. Well, I'm going to believe God that he's going to give me the discipline to pull my plate back, lessen my portions. Don't eat 6 pack of donuts and Intimates, chocolate frosted, not the devil's food, chocolate frosted.
My God.
By myself in 3 days.
My God.
And give me discipline. You know, I can eat 1 donut every 2 weeks, and I'm perfectly fine. I needed God to give me faith and discipline to transfer it to that area. Because if I could believe for the job I got that I don't have a degree for, I should be able to believe him to give me discipline to get further in him. Now, will I fit the bill? Because I'm still, according to standards, I'm 6 foot, so I should be 180 pounds according to what the standard is, right? No, I'm at my healthy self. My blood is where it should be. Everything is fine. And I'm asking God, keep me help. Okay, keep me focused in this area. Now, Lord, let me transfer this faith to strengthen it with my son. Let me transfer it to my son and help build him up. So I think we got to be able to take what we know of God and what he allows us to do and transfer faith in getting things done through him in every area of our life.
Awesome. I love it. Coach Cailah, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I love that. Like, you're absolutely right. You know, a lot of times we look at the final project and we think we have to jump from where we start to the final thing. And that's not it. It's a process. You know, everything with God is a process. You know, it's never going to just jump up and, okay, now we've reached the end. You know, it's for God. Yes, he sees the beginning and the end. But for us, it's the journey. We've got to get there. So we've got to realize that, hey, yeah, we may have started at an A1C of 11 point whatever, but what's the journey of getting to where we want to be? You know, yes, we may be overweight, and that's okay. Like, that's the thing. It's okay to recognize where we are right now. But let's recognize it with honesty, and let's really look at ourselves and say, hey, is my physical body hindering me from doing the things that God would have me to do? That's what the true message is, right? So again, when I gave the example of not being able to breathe when you're walking up the steps trying to bring somebody a Thanksgiving basket, is your physical body hindering your spiritual self? And that's my true message outside of the kind of fun and the laughs and all that. Like, I think we really, we forget, like you're saying, Elder, that there is a balance. We have to be balanced in our spirit, as well as our mind, as well as our body, as well as our finances, as well as there's so many things. But again, if we can really look in the mirror and see and really ask ourselves, am I glorifying God in my body? If I'm only doing it on the pulpit, is that really living a Christian life? Am I really following Jesus? Am I only doing it for others? What am I doing it for? So again, whatsoever you do, do it for the glory of the Lord. But make sure that where you are physically, that it does not hinder the path and the message and the voice of God. Because like you mentioned with that Kirk Franklin song, a lot of times we are the God that people see. So am I representing God well? In my walk, in my talk, and my look, am I representing him? Sorry, I had to interject that.
You're good. I appreciate it. Naamon, I'm going to close it out with you, and then I'm going to let everybody give their sign off. You know, I had to save the best for last, so I'm coming to you, my man, because that's what we do here on It Is What It Is podcast. So, Naamon, you know, Dr. Shepard talked about it, said we're coming into Thanksgiving. You know, this is not the time to throw it all away, right? We're going to have, you know, I would say a massive gluttonous season for the next 6 weeks, right? Or in the next 4 or 5 weeks. And then everybody is going to try to start back in 2020. Obviously, that's the wrong approach. And we don't even know if we're going to have a live watch meeting service because of COVID, right? So watch meeting service. 2021, this is like the Super Bowl for pastors, right? This and Easter, right? What part of the message, or when you talk about realignment, I mean, there's always some type of focus for 2021. I'm sure you've been in your prayer closet and you already kind of have that theme coming up. What is the message for 2021?
Oh, well, first, I'm not having watch service because it's not safe. My church is not open. So I think that a lot of the things that we're talking about in fitness have to do with the decisions that come through the leaders as far as like having our churches open. So I just lost a best friend that was perfectly healthy from COVID-19. So I think when we talk about the physical part, it's decision based as well. And a lot of times when you trust in leadership to put you in a safe environment, especially in the African American Western church, we hold pastors to this unbelievable responsibility like we're perfect. And Lord knows I'm not, and y'all can tell that already. But the message for me for 2021 is that everything has changed but God. Everything has changed but God. Church has changed. How I look at church has changed. Everything has changed but God. For he said he's the same today, yesterday, and forevermore. But besides him, everything has changed. My outlook. The days of 3.5 hour services are gone. I mean, even those of us who take the vaccine, I mean, one of the problems that we're having, the churches that are open, and whoever open, you open. But if you're open and you still having service for 3 hours, you're saying I'm putting my people in danger for 3 hours. So for me, that's part of my fitness. Part of my fitness is making sure that the people that respect my opinion, that I'm putting them in the best position where they can lose weight, where we have the opportunity to lose weight and things of that nature. So my message is everything has changed but God. And where are you at inside of the change? And I do believe, and I will say this, I do believe that the church is behind on the change. It's because we only know it one way. It's because we only have preached it one way. Elder Fears said something very powerful. It's because Samuel only had one example of a united king was Saul. So many of us that are preaching a particular way is because we've only seen it one type of way. So when we have the different, as Coach has said, the different culture outlooks on the church as far as preaching and teaching and singing and worshiping. I mean, I'm a minister of music of a huge organization. I'm a minister of music of a big choir. So right now there's no need for me. It's because it's 100 of them. Now who gonna be singing with 100 voices anywhere? So I have to be able to look at this thing on how can I make sure that everybody is safe? And I'm gonna close with this, Cody. I think us speaking about fitness in the pandemic, we have to be able to understand that there are certain places, there's certain things that we shouldn't be around, and certain places that we shouldn't be. And I think for us to have the opportunity of living a fit life is based upon our decisions in this pandemic.
I love it. It's hard to hear about your friend.
Yes, sir.
Where can they connect? Look, I want to thank all my guests. You know, we come up on the hour. I always try to keep it in time, on time, because I am the grandson of Bishop Marshall, and I can feel him putting his arm around me from the grave. I've seen him sit preachers down for less. So I'm always going to be in time. That's why I don't preach long, because I see that arm. When I was a kid, I was like, man, if that ever happened to me, I'd be so embarrassed. So, Pastor Naamon Williams, where can they connect with you, my man?
Man, you can meet me at NaamonWilliams.com, and you can look me up, or you can meet me at Bread of Life or my Facebook page, Naamon Williams.
Awesome. Love it. The elder Maurice Fears, Sr., where can they connect with you, my man?
Yes, sir. Maurice Fears on Facebook. Shout out my church, Redeemed Church, Pastor Fears, 1040 Rowell, Joliet. And also want to go to Instagram. It's not my account, but it's my son. It's Maurice Fears 1. He's a musician. Check him out. Maurice Fears 1 on Instagram. I'd rather you go there than come to my page.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Dr. Shepard, where can they connect with you and when you going to have you back on the show, my man?
Oh, it'll be depends on which one you want to come back on.
Whatever show you want me. I almost said so wild, but I had to think about who was on this set. Whatever show you want to put me on, my man.
I'm fortunate. I got 2 podcasts. Actually, I have a true podcast, you all. It's on VidFlex TV. You should look us up. We just started it. Myself and Bishop Seaguy Robinson. Cody's been on there a few times actually now. I call Spirit in Mind, where we look at mental health issues and biblical issues and how the two form a critical collaboration. And so it's awesome. That's on Saturday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Then I do another one on Fridays called Ask the Doctor, Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so check me out on one of those two. And, look me up, Dr. J. Shep. I'll say this at the very end. This pandemic has changed me. What I was doing prior to this pandemic, people never thought I'm doing or that I had the capability of doing what I am doing right now. I didn't even know it. But what I have seen, and I want to encourage people out there, is that don't allow this time of isolation to stop the growth that you have experienced. God has put something deep down inside of you. And I tell people, when I come out of this, I'm going to look so much better. And that's not bragging or anything like that, but I'm just telling you, don't sleep on this pandemic. God has something for you.
Awesome. In the words of Willie James Campbell, better, so I totally appreciate it. And when I get my honorary doctorate degree, I want to be on the Friday night. I've been on the Saturday show anytime. They give you honorary degrees in the Church of God of Christ. Like, you a doctor? So, Coach Cailah, the one, the only, where can they connect with you?
Guys, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it as well. You can always connect with me at everything Coach Cailah. Okay, my website is Coach Cailah. Cailah is spelled Cailah. Same thing on Instagram, on Twitter. Type in Coach Cailah on YouTube. Now, I do have a new podcast. Just changed my name. It's called Nutrition and Fitness Made Simple with me, Coach Cailah. So the biggest message is always design your body. God gave us a body so that we can design it to glorify him. And that is the most important thing. Let's glorify God in all that we do. Every day, all day. If we make mistakes, hey, it's okay. Yes, you might have a little bit too much mac and cheese at Thanksgiving, but it's okay. Get back up, do better the next day. Always think about do better the next day. CoachCailah.com, guys.
That's it. Do better the next day. Like I said, a little sangria never hurt anybody. I've said that before and I'll say it again. Hey, look, I appreciate my guests. I'm so grateful for these guys.
Don't do that.
I'm working on some stuff for December. I'm thinking about some great content. I'm just trying to flesh it out. As soon as I know, you'll know. But Monday, 6:30 Central Standard Time, I'm here. Connect with me. All platforms, CBMK33 on Instagram. But I appreciate everybody. Till next time. Thanks.